All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are learning about Articles 4 and 6 of the Constitution. So on slide 1, you'll notice that there's a map of the United States. That's because this section is all about the balance of power between the states and the federal government. On that first slide, there is something you have to write in, and it is really the main idea of both of these articles. Federalism. We've looked at this word before, but the definition is the separation of powers between the states, which is what Article 4 is all about, and the federal government, which is what Article 6 is all about. So thinking back, it would make sense for the Founding Fathers to need to list in the next few sections here what powers the states have specifically and what powers the federal government has. All right. So, Article 4 is the first one. Article 4 explains how states should interact with each other. And it's broken up into sections just like every other article, so we're going to follow the order of those sections for this set of notes. So the first section is titled Official Records and Acts. The first thing they say is that states must respect each other's laws. In other words, if we travel to Indiana, we are responsible for respecting those states' laws. And Congress can pass laws to ensure that this happens. Remember, the Articles of Confederation did not require that. So it makes sense then that some of the first things that the Founding Fathers do are clarifying what the states can and probably more importantly cannot do. Okay, the next section is about citizens. All states must treat citizens of another state with the same rights it has given to its own citizens. Okay, the next part is actually about criminals, and this part is unique. If a criminal flees to another state, he or she must be extradited or returned to the state where the crime was committed. In other words, let's say Mrs. Lopez, got found really guilty of some traffic violation in Nebraska. She would need to return all the way back to Nebraska in order to have that court proceeding if there was one. That's what extradition looks like. Extradited is the past tense. Now, thinking back, we already learned a little bit about this actually. We learned about this when we were talking about slavery and the Constitution. Thinking back, we learned about how the Constitution has an excerpt in it that says that if a slave or somebody found in service or labor in one state escaping to another shall be discharged from such service or labor and delivered upon claim to the party to whom the service or labor may be due. In other words, they are returned back to, at this time, what was considered their owner. And this was a part of this section. So remember, the Constitution doesn't actually mention the word slavery. It kind of sort of teeters around that word, but this is an example of extradition, and it's called the Fugitive Slave Act. And we learned about it way back when we learned about the Constitution and slavery with Mr. Lawrence. Okay. The next part is about new states and territories. In other words, the Founding Fathers wanted to set out a procedure for admitting new states to the Union. Thinking back to the Articles of Confederation simulation, remember, they needed all states to approve in order to actually allow this to happen, to have new states. So, new states may only be admitted to the country with the approval of Congress. New states have the same rights as all other states. They don't have to earn their place. They get the same constitutional rights. And number 3, Congress can make laws to govern U.S. territories. A territory is treated differently than a state. There's a list of our U.S. territories right here in your notes, as well as a video at the bottom explaining Puerto Rico's potential statehood, which is a current debate right now. It's important to understand that our territories operate differently than states. This is a map, so if you wanted to screenshot this, displaying where our actual territories are right now. But they are not considered states. Again, they are territories. However, they do sort of double with citizenship with the United States. Puerto Rico, for example, you can travel to Puerto Rico without a U.S. passport because it is a territory of the United States, same with all of these places. However, Puerto Ricans do not have representatives in Congress. So again, a territory is a level under full statehood. And right now there is a debate, again, about whether or not Puerto Rico should be granted actual statehood. Okay. Now, in order for that to happen, they do have requirements of states. And the first is that each state will have a republican form of government, meaning they will have a representative system of government. For example, in Illinois, this is sort of a microcosm of our country, right? We have 3 branches of government in Illinois. We have a state legislative branch, a state executive branch, and a state judicial branch. But instead of the executive branch being run by the president, the executive branch is run by our governor, who is J.B. Pritzker. And then the last thing in here that is guaranteed to the states is that the federal government must protect the states from internal or external threats. Okay, with that, you have all of your Article 4 notes about how states should interact with each other.